Hey guys, how's it going? Alright, the multiplayer shenanigans are on hold for the time being. Not because I haven't been interested in playing it, but mainly just because a fair amount of feedback was that people didn't really like the casual quality of the games, which I can completely understand. Although the irony is that I had an amazing multiplayer game, I think yesterday or the night before, and it was in the budget category. Someone was hosting a budget multiplayer game, so I played with my 2DH Dralnu deck and had an absolutely amazing game that unfortunately the replay failed for. Sad. It would have been one for the ages. But anyway, back to playing 1v1. I'm playing with Nin right here, and I'm up against the Locust God, which is actually a commander I've never faced before. Those new various gods are quite impressive, actually. And this one is probably not as good as Nin the Paint Artist, but it's quite interesting, at least, and can be very pesky. Not quite as bad as the Scarab God, I think, which is just ridiculous. I played against that guy recently in a draft. Yeah, you can imagine how that went. All right. Anyway, he's going first, and I have, unfortunately, a borderline keepable hand, a hand that's fantastic if I'm not playing against blue and if I have one more mana. If I have one more mana, this hand is just just amazing, really. I mean, I can play turn 1 Bauble, turn 2 Signet, turn 3 Trinket Mage into something good and sack the Bauble and go nuts. But unfortunately, I have to throw this hand away for a random 6, and this is extremely unkeepable, much worse than the 7-card hand. So that goes away in an instant, and I'm left with this hand, which has plenty of mana, and unfortunately has one uncastable card. Definitely dim prospects, and going second, but at least I get to scry, and the scry reveals an uncastable Keranos, so he's certainly going to the bottom. I'm up against Euro Star Hero. Going in. And he sacks the Misty Rainforest turn 1 and suspends Ancestral Visions, which is just about as good an opener probably as his deck can hope for in the minus Crypt and Soul Ring era. So that's a problem, especially because I have no counter spells, and not like I'd probably be able to fight over it anyway. Card is just ridiculous if you get it at the beginning of the game. Alright, Impulse. Well, that's fairly handy. Gives me at least the opportunity to dig for more mana later. But I feel like my prospects in this game were practically zero, honestly, from the get-go, with my opponent suspending an Ancestral Visions right at the start. And it is about to get substantially worse. He sacks another land, gets his other Volcanic Island, and casts a Felwar Stone. Lovely. Well, at least it only makes blue mana for the time being. Yeah, I should have probably not played this mountain at first. Just given the fact that maybe the Felwar making red was important. But I don't know. I'm kind of just casting stuff right now anyway. At least I don't want him to wasteland me before I can maybe cast Nin and cast Impulse in the same turn. And meanwhile, the clock is ticking. He plays a Fairy Conclave, which is a strange card to see, and Mindstone. Not sure why he's playing with this card. I would definitely not run it in a deck that was clearly trying to use the gods and stuff to win. What is the attack condition of this guy, anyway? Oh, okay. He just attacks. It's just a 4/4 flyer. Alright. Well, I need to just keep drawing land, although this is coming off suspend in 2 turns, so I really need to get a counterspell as well. That's what hopefully the Impulse will do. And I draw Crucible of Worlds, which is kind of interesting, but unfortunately I have no fetch lands for it, but it does at least give me a way to catch up a little further along. I'm going to just cast Nin here. There's nothing better to do, since I intend to just Impulse end of turn. Alright, down to 1 suspend counter. Looking grim. I really need him to not have a 6th land here and just play his commander, actually, which would really complicate things a lot and put me on a pretty nasty clock. Especially because he's going to draw 3 from the Ancestral Visions next turn, and every time he draws a card, he gets a 1/1 red and blue insect, so he'd get 4 insects on his next turn and hit me for 8, which would probably put me on an unbeatable clock. So the fact he didn't have a 6th land there gives me a glimmer of hope, but I need a counterspell really, really fast, like right now, urgently. And I'd probably honestly let him play his Ancestral Vision and just hope that he would see me not countering the Ancestral Vision as a tell that I didn't have any counters in hand, and I would certainly click through the Ancestral Vision really fast if I did in fact have a counter, hoping that he would run out his Locust God into my counterspell, and then maybe I could untap and play the Lotus and have a shot here off the Nin But unfortunately, my deck does not cooperate. In keeping with the Mana Starve plan from earlier, I get 4 spells. And Worn Power Stone is excellent, but I can't afford to play it right now because I need to bluff some degree of defense or potentially use the Into the Royal. War of Invention, of course, does nothing. I can't even cast it. Mystical Tutor, pretty useless right now, and that leaves just Chandra Torch of Defiance as a potential way to at least generate some mana or stall the game out. I mean, Chandra, in worst-case scenario, is at least a Sisay's Ring that makes red. So I'm going to just hang on to that and hope it matters. All right, cool. There's a 5th land. That's really handy. So at least I can bluff more robust counter magic. Unfortunately, I can't play the Lotus here because I need to represent some degree of defense. And, of course, I want the option of just having Nin shoot herself at the end of the turn, which I'm fully prepared to do to match parity with that Ancestral Visions. So it goes to his upkeep. And because I actually have no counterspells, I'm gonna actually attempt to bluff one here. This is just grasping at straws. I tap 3 mana, and then I reconsider and think for a little while, and eventually I let him draw 3. But at least that's getting him to think and not just clicking right through. I'll often click through when I want my opponent to think I don't have a counter, of course. But you don't always want to do it. Okay. So he's got to have a 6th land here, and surely he does. And he plays Kefnet the Mindful. Huh. Well, that's interesting. That's another card I haven't played against very much. Very, very powerful, though, given the fact that it's a reusable Jam-Day Tome. And I'm not running Winter Orb in my deck, so I don't really have a long-term solution to Kefnet. And he can just grind me down with it, which is just another thing that's going to complicate the situation. So what I have to hope here is a series of plays unfolds where I use Nin the Pain Artist, and hopefully he actually takes the bait. I'm positive he's got a counter. He's got 6 cards in hand. And I'm hopeful that he'll actually interact with Nin, either by killing it or bouncing it, in which case I'll be able to play my Gilded Lotus and might be able to... well, he's going to be able to kill Chandra with Kefnet, so that's not a plan. But I can play Gilded Lotus, and if I draw another land, I'll be able to replay Nin the Pain Artist right away. And that will give me a total of, 9 mana, which will allow me to draw 7, which could potentially outrace everything that he's going to do. It's one thing that's true about card advantage. You can often outrace the most dire of situations just by simply outdrawing them. So that's my intention. But I got to draw land. That has to happen now. All right, end of turn. Nin attempts to shoot herself. This will certainly help me to draw lots of mana. And my hope here really is that he has no way to interact with Nin and no counterspell, in which case I get 3 cards. Hopefully one of them is a land, and I can go land, Lotus, and replay Nin, which would just kind of be living the dream. So here's the first part of that. Checking for bounce or removal. And he starts to tap mana, and he riffs me, which is shitty, but at the same time, it does at least open up plan B, which is to get that Lotus into play and to out-mana him to some degree. In fact, I'm not really that far behind if I do get Gilded Lotus to stick, because it will ramp me up to 8 versus his 6, with pretty much the same number of cards in hand. Map. Huh. Well, that is very interesting. So I've got 2 routes with this card. The first route, of course, is the play not to lose route, and that is simply play the map and go get something like Ancient Tomb, and then maybe replay Nin and potentially protect it with Into the Royal and hope that he doesn't have more bounce. And while that I think is a decent route of play, what I decided to do is take some risk here. He is tapped down to just 1 blue, and he does have 3 non-basic lands in play. So I spot an opening here that I think I'm going to try to exploit. Even though he just drew 4 last turn, and he's got this Kefnet, I feel that if I can maybe attack him with Wasteland, I might be able to delay him long enough to deploy some of these other cards. So I'm going to go sack the Expedition map and immediately just get Wasteland and nuke down his Volcanic Island. And there's a small potential, too, that he doesn't have a 6th land and he can't even cast his General. And even if he did, I can always just play Chandra, destroy the General, and then destroy another land, which will keep him off of 6 mana for another turn. So Kefnet can't attack me, which is quite nice because he cast a Cyclonic Rift. So he goes to 6. And he pays 5 mana and he casts Tamiyo the Moon Sage. So he had another option, of course, which is to bounce a land back to his hand to draw a card, which would have taken him up to 7. He could have beaten me for 5 and not interacted with the Lotus. I don't know if that was a better play based on his hand, but this is certainly a good alternate play. And man, Tamiyo is just one of those cards that I could never ever find room for it in a deck. But it is sometimes so powerful and obnoxious, especially because that ultimate is crazy insane. But just the +1 is often really troublesome. It can tap down Nin, for example, and in this case, it's going to keep my Gilded Lotus tapped, which is really a beating. But he's still stuck at 5, so I'm not under any pressure, which is good. And I still have 5 mana available. And I've got Crucible going. And Nin has only cost 2 mana. So I draw a Lightning Bolt, which doesn't do anything, of course, because Tamiyo is already at 5. Alright then. Play the Crucible. Play Wasteland, kill off another Volcanic Island, dropping him to just 4 mana. And play Nin. And I don't Into the Royal Tamiyo yet, because I kind of need to get the Fairy Conclave down out of the way first before I do that. If I cast Into the Royal instead of Nin the Pain Artist right here, and he draws a land right away, then he just replays Tamiyo and keeps the Lotus tapped, and I lose a very, very important interactive tool. So with that in mind, I'm just going to gamble that he doesn't draw a land for another turn, or that he's forced to bounce his island back to his hand with the Kefnet. Another thing he could potentially do is tap all of his mana, return the Conclave to protect it, and then hope to get a basic land. But either way, dropping him to 4 mana is really important. Plus, I'm going to potentially get another use out of my Nin here. Goes back to his turn, he taps 4, and he casts, Everflowing Chalice, which is quite a card to have at this point, because it's going to give him 2 more mana, and the Felwar Stone is still making red. So he taps the Lotus down for another turn, which allows me, of course, to use Nin. He still can't attack with Kefnet. Alright, excellent. And he can't even protect the Fairy Conclave with Kefnet either, because he tapped out. So I draw Fabricate, and while Fabricate is normally excellent, I don't really have a particularly good opening. If I had 1 more mana here, I would be able to Fabricate for the Phyrexian Metamorph and copy my Gilded Lotus, which is what I would absolutely do. But in this case, I'm just going to have to... Actually, I guess I do have the Wasteland. That might have been actually a decent thing to do right there. But I really, really want to keep him off of mana. I want to kill the Fairy Conclave and just continue to slow him down here. Because my plan here is to hopefully use Nin to draw some cards and draw into a way to destroy an artifact. Because if I can destroy this artifact and bounce Tamiyo, it's going to reduce him down to just 3 land. And that might be decisive. So I'm going to use Nin here to draw 3, hoping to get some kind of artifact kill. And I've got a fair amount of them in the deck. Come on, baby. A Braid. Phenomenal. Wow. And a Remand to protect it. That's actually the first real counterspell I've drawn. So Tamiyo is at 6, but that's fine, because next turn I'm going to be able to play a land from the graveyard, and I'll have enough mana to Braid this, bounce Tamiyo without kicker, and Remand whatever he tries to do. And that should be pretty decisive, given the fact that he'll have only 3 mana left and be in real, real bad shape, at least for a good while, and that'll allow me to get the Chandra online and start doing good stuff. And he does nothing. And that is clearly, I think, just a misclick on his part. He didn't have enough mana to play his commander, but he certainly wanted to use Tamiyo on the Gilded Lotus, or potentially even draw a land off Kefnet, which would have gotten him up to 7. I mean, if he doesn't have a land to play, right, might as well just draw a card, play a land, or draw a card, attack for 7, and then replay a land. It's better than doing nothing, certainly. So I think he just clicked too fast, probably just raging a little bit that he didn't draw a land. And it goes back to my turn, and he scoops, which is just crazy. But the thing is that even though I think this was obviously a misclick and premature, I think I actually had one. I think I had this game won. And the reason is because if I do that play, I play Wasteland from the graveyard, I Braid this thing. If he has a counterspell, I Remand the counterspell back to his hand, and then I bounce Tamiyo. And he's pretty screwed at that point, because the next turn I can Fabricate, get another copy of Gilded Lotus, play Chandra, play Nin, start using Nin to draw tons of cards, and probably pull well away from the game. So I thought this was an awesome game, just based on how far behind I was at the start after that Ancestral Visions, and him getting this card drawing god online and having to make some very tough decisions. I think that by far the toughest decision of all is what to do with this expedition map, and choosing the route of the Wasteland proved to be absolutely decisive and got me the win. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. Hopefully you maybe learned a little bit about how the kind of options you can make when you're behind and struggling with a control deck. And I've got more games for you guys to enjoy right down the road. See you later.